Well, hello, my friends. Welcome to me, your host, Christian Watson. So, my friends, if you were a state employee in California right now, you may be in for a little bit of a restrictive time. Well, this is according to the California Attorney General, who the other day, yesterday, Tuesday, June 28th, 2021, put a restriction, a sort of travel ban on state-funded ventures into four other red states, including Florida. So, these states would be Florida, Arkansas, North Dakota, West Virginia. And he did this, of course, on the 52nd anniversary of the Stonewall riots, the incident which, for many people, sparked a resurgence of consciousness amongst gay people and began the fight for gay rights. So I think that Stonewall is a little bit more of a complicated event than that. I think that there's a lot of things to learn, both good things and bad things to learn, but we'll forget that. So the Attorney General has phrased his proclamation banning state funding for certain types of travel by saying that California must take action to avoid supporting or financing discrimination against lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people. And of course, these bans are in response to the moves by some of these states to ban transgender athletes from participating in certain sports that cohere with their assumed sex as opposed to their biological sex. And so the Attorney General of California has made it a mission of his to castigate anyone with that opinion and to label them blanketly as bigots and homophobes or whatever they want to call them. So, my friends, let's talk about first justifications, because all moral or ethical actions, or all actions that concern morals and ethics, and this certainly is a statement of morals and ethics, requires some kind of justification. And that's kind of why morals and ethics exist, to give us justification or not for certain types of actions. And so, there is nothing inherently illegal about a state government saying, we will not fund you to travel to this place as an employee. There's nothing illegal about it. But as we understand, this is not a matter of legality but morality. First principles dictates to us, the first principles of the American experiment, this brilliant republic, which is perhaps one of the most strongest affirmations of individual rights of all kinds in the history of America and history of the world, First principles dictates to us that it is not from the statutes and the big full law books that Americans derive their freedom or Americans derive their understanding of what is correct and is wrong. It is from a source outside of ourselves that we can access through reason, that we can divine through reason, and we can use to weigh against the statutes and laws of the land. And in many cases, when we look at that source outside ourselves, which would be the natural law, we see that many of the statutes of the land are fundamentally unjust or undesirable, just like this one. And why is it unjust or undesirable? Let me tell you about it. Even though no one has the right to use state money to travel somewhere, even though I think that state money is itself an oxymoron since it is obtained through certain means that are not legitimate, but whatever, the state government is using the symbolism of its office. The Attorney General is using the symbolism of his office to do two things. Number one, to suggest that state employees should restrict their freedom of movement to his arbitrary whims, and he's using force as a way of indirectly establishing that claim. And number two, he's using the force of his office to alienate and invalidate any opinion that may go against his paradigm without actually assessing the merits of those opinions or justifications. So in a sense, he's doing a pseudo ad hominem attack in which whenever you disagree with this Attorney General or his proclamations, you must be against gay and lesbian people. And so there are a few things happening here. When you have this simplified mentality that anyone who does not want a transgendered boy or a transgendered girl to compete in different kinds of sports that do not cohere with their biological sex, when you say that is homophobic or that is rude or that is racist or whatever, and you append a value judgment to that assertion, you are not engaging with the merits or the merits of the claims being made by people who think that it's a little bit too far for transgendered athletes to compete in certain tournaments. You are simply using their existence, the existence of transgender athletes. You're tying their existence to a particular activity, and then you're saying if you're against this kind of activity, you're against their existence. This sort of existential wizardry that we're seeing from the Attorney General is dishonest and epistemically fraudulent, and it is not going to help at all anyone, including the state employees who are unfortunately under the purview of this mastermind, under the purview of this trickster. It's not going to help any of them understand any of this even more. It's going to bind them to the foot of authority, and it's just not going to help whatsoever. Along with it being a moral violation, again, state employees do have freedom of movement. Now, their freedom of movement is not necessarily impinged upon by this particularly, but the government is trying to use force to suggest the routes and journeys that they should go on. And if we didn't have the guiding light within ourselves to know where we want to go with our time, what states we want to visit, you can be left anywhere. George Harrison said, if you do not know where you're going, any road will take you there. And so the California government is trying to take their employees there through means that are not, as I mentioned before, legitimate for them to exercise according to the natural law. And also, just one more thing. It appears to me to be fundamentally unreasonable to suspect anyone else who may have different opinions to simply be on the different side of a political aisle. This is the sort of essentialization that I wanted to mention. The sort of idea of making a single position resident in a single political aisle. There are plenty of people on the left, they may not be vocal, who have skepticism about the fairness, the sort of equity of having certain kinds of athletes in certain kinds of sports. And guess what? These are ethical concerns. These are scientific, biological concerns even. These are not necessarily concerns that are bigoted or discriminatory by themselves. But the Attorney General here is poisoning the well by linking skepticism of a particular activity that may or may not even be in the interest of a transgender person. Not all transgender folks play sports. So transgender individuals, like everyone else, have a diverse set of interests. So he's taking a single action that may or may not be in line with what transgender folks actually want to mean the end-all, be-all of their existence. My friends, this ban is nothing more than the highest example of, again, moral sanctimony, epistemic fraud, and an attempt and being proximal to a violation of the state of California's employees' ability to travel and decide where they want to travel for themselves. A violation of conscience, rather. And if we actually want to have productive discourse in this country, the Attorney General of California ought to stop using force or the levers of force to create a proximate outcome in his favor. He ought to engage in the Socratic conversation around some of these things. Consider, independent of his biases, whether this stuff is just or unjust. And then if he finds that it is unjust, explain it to people, but do not force things upon people that you're not willing to explain. If you cannot state your position clearly and effectively and argue it with epistemic humility, you don't have a position worth holding. Or if you do, you are leaving that obscured to the person that you're in concert with, that you're in mutual intellectual intercourse with. Be in concert with virtue and truth. Do not be in concert with sanctimony and virtue signaling. Think on it. My friends, I love you guys so much. If you want to support me, patreon.com/officialcwatson or PayPal, officialcwatson@gmail.com. I love you guys so much. Please join my locals, christianwatson.locals.com, and please join my Discord, which is in the link down below. I'll see you guys later, and please stay offensive. Bye-bye, guys.